two hires were announced by LSU, well, reported to be coming towards LSU, weren't announced by LSU football, but reports were that LSU added a couple of analysts to the staff yesterday. Noah Joseph was the first name that came up. Noah Joseph was most recently the general manager at Purdue, where he was dealing with roster management and name, image, and likeness relations, that kind of thing. But he has spent a lot of time on the football field. He played at Drake in the late 90s and has coached really all over the place since then. Coached with Indiana, coached at North Texas, was a co-defensive coordinator at Montana State, up in the Big Sky. He was at Eastern Illinois for a short period, coached at Eastern Kentucky, Iowa State. He's been all over the place. So that's a guy who's had kind of experience two different places, one on the field and one in the general manager department. Again, I'm not going to make too big a deal out of these hires, these analyst hires. They're just extra eyes, and guys that have been in college football for 25 years can certainly be valuable, both with relationships when it comes to recruiting, as well as just with football acumen and knowledge they can help with in terms of breaking down film and making sure that the on-field coaching staff has as much information as they possibly can. That's the name of the game. When the NCAA said you can have as many support staff as you possibly want, everybody that had money went and got as many as they could possibly grab. Saban had a virtual army of crimson-clad analysts, paroling the football complex in Tuscaloosa, and the smart teams have followed suit. And certainly LSU has looked into that. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know a ton about Noah Joseph, and I'm not going to spend 45 minutes digging into Noah Joseph's background because he's an analyst on the defensive side of the football, and we'll kind of leave it at that. I am intrigued by the other addition to LSU football's staff because it kind of rings into my childhood a little bit. LSU hired Tim Rattay as an analyst. Most of you probably have heard the name Tim Rattay, but there's certainly going to be some of you that have no idea who that is at all. I grew up in Shreveport in North Louisiana. Was born in 1988 and was certainly a young kid when Tim Rattay was just eviscerating the record books in Ruston, Louisiana. He had Troy Edwards out at wide receiver, and he was just lighting it up for the Bulldogs over in Ruston. From 96 to 99, he just rewrote the record books. He finished second all-time in college football history at that point in total offense at Louisiana Tech. He ended up hanging around in the NFL for more than 6 years with San Francisco. He ended up in the UFL and then started his coaching career there and has been a coach ever since. He has coached with the Las Vegas Locomotives. That's where he was in the UFL and took a job there as a wide receivers coach. Then he went back to his alma mater, Louisiana Tech, coached wide receivers for 3 years and coached quarterbacks for the next 2 years. And when he did that, he worked alongside Joe Sloan briefly in Ruston. Then he went to the Washington Redskins at the time in 2019 to be the quarterbacks coach. And since 2020, he's been coaching the quarterbacks at Oklahoma State. You understand that Mike Gundy played quarterback. He handles their offense at Oklahoma State. So you're kind of just implemented into that system there. But he has made the move down to Baton Rouge and is going to be an analyst offensively on the staff. That's a guy who clearly has a wealth of football knowledge. When you are a player, even at the level he was at, which was the WAC at the time, when you're able to throw for that many yards, you've got a really good understanding of what you're doing offensively. Tim Rattay did not have a cannon for an arm, did not have, some sort of elite level offense. He had a really good wide receiver in Troy Edwards, who was an NFL player, but he obviously understood what he was doing under center at that point. And then you go to the NFL and you play for as long as he did with San Francisco for those 5 years, and then spend some time with the Buccaneers, Titans on the practice squad, and the Arizona Cardinals before moving on to the UFL. I mean, that's a guy who's been around the highest level of football and certainly has a great understanding. So, again, I don't mean to overemphasize the importance of an analyst, but it did that. I mean, that name is one that I'll just remember because when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, Louisiana Tech was scoring a bajillion points, and it was just something that I was aware of in that North Louisiana ecosystem. And now all of a sudden, Rattay comes back down. I'm confident that Joe Sloan had something to do with that. So I think that's a positive to add him into the offensive support staff. So Tim Rattay, as well as Noah Joseph being added to LSU's coaching staff as analyst, and they'll start things up with spring practice. We actually got the dates for LSU spring football practice yesterday. Those were released, and I put them up on LouisianaSports.net, and it should come as no surprise to anyone who has been listening to me for 2 days or to the morning show guys a little bit earlier that the Wi-Fi can be a little spotty, so I went to pull up the dates of practice and got kicked off the internet there. However, I'm going to pull them up here very shortly because LSU is starting up fall practice, spring practice here shortly. There's my internet, and there we are. So they will start things up on March the 8th. That's a Saturday. They'll practice 15 times. That'll culminate on April the 12th. So a month and 4 days from right now, we'll have LSU spring football practice, and certainly we'll have you covered here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge, as well as LouisianaSports.net. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.